Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's class. In previous class, we were discussing the law of conservation of energy, and we will continue with the same thing in today's class. Law of conservation of energy, we had seen that if only conservative forces are present and non-conservative forces are absent, the mechanical energy of a body remains constant. And we had seen this law of conservation of mechanical energy, and we had applied it in various cases, and we had seen that the same question that can be done with work energy theorem can also be done with law of conservation of mechanical energy. We had seen that the work energy theorem is the mother theorem that is applicable everywhere wherever you have forces acting, whether they are conservative or they are non-conservative. You can always apply work energy theorem. You can always apply work energy theorem. But if there are only conservative forces present, you can also solve the question using law of conservation of mechanical energy. Do we understand this, everyone? Okay. So we were doing some problems. We will continue. I'll give you one more problem today so as to clear the concept correctly. Let me just adjust this. So as to clear the concept correctly, we'll solve one or two problems. And here goes the first problem for today. This is problem number 58 from your notes. And we'll try to solve this problem and see how do we apply law of conservation of mechanical energy in this particular problem. So here goes the problem. I'll underline the important points of the problem. And the problem goes like this. A boy is sitting on a swing. The maximum height is 5 meters above ground. So this is a swing. You must have seen a swing. Maximum height is 5 meters above ground. When the swing passes through the mean position of a pendulum or a swing is the lowest position, which is 2 meters above the ground. So this lowest position or mean position is 2 meters above the ground. What is the velocity of the swing? So this is a swing. Swing moves like a simple pendulum. When it is at the highest point, its height is 5 meters. At the highest point, which is here, point number A, the velocity is zero. We all understand this. Yes or no? At the highest point, the velocity is zero. Whether it's a projectile, whether it's a ball thrown up, at the highest point, the velocity has to be zero. We have to find out the velocity when it passes the mean position, that is the point B. This point B is 2 meters above the ground. Point A is 5 meters above ground. The question passes on to you. 2 minutes to solve it. I hope all of you are solving the question. To find the velocity of the swing when it passes the mean position, I'll give you 1 more minute. So how are we going to solve this question? I hope all of you have tried this. Anyone got the answer? Offline class, online class? Anyone who got the answer for this one? Yes, no? Anyone got the answer? So basically what we got to do, we have to apply law of conservation of mechanical energy from point A to point B. Mechanical energy at point A should be equal to mechanical energy at point B. That means potential energy at point A plus kinetic energy at point A must be equal to potential energy at point B plus kinetic energy at point B. Potential energy at point A, the highest point, is m into g into 5 meters. It is 5 meters above ground, plus kinetic energy at point A, highest point, velocity is 0, kinetic energy is 0. That must be equal to potential energy at point B, m into g into 2 meters above ground. I have taken the potential energy of ground as 0. If you don't want to take the potential energy of ground as 0, you can take the potential energy of point B as 0. If I take the potential energy of point B as 0, potential energy of point B becomes 0. Then point A is at a height of 3 meters. So potential energy of point A becomes 3 mg. So you can do it that way or you can do it this way. Doesn't matter. Plus kinetic energy at point B is half mv square, where v is the velocity of the swing when it passes the lowest point. Solving this equation, you should be able to get the answer for velocity. I hope all of you were able to do this. Can I have some raise hand that we understand this? Everyone in the online class as well as the offline class, do we understand this? Okay, that was a simple question. I hope you have noted it down. I'll give you a minute to note it down and then we will move on. To the next part. Next question. Okay, so this is the next problem. This is problem number 63 from your notes. The question is pretty simple. These are the type of questions you can expect in your paper. So I'll underline the important points of the question and then I will leave it to you to solve it. A stone projected vertically upwards, so I'm throwing something upwards, reaches a maximum height h. The maximum height is h. When the height is 3h by 4, when the height is 3 times h by 4, so it is not at the highest point, it is 3 by 4th of its highest point. What is the ratio of kinetic and potential energies? So a stone reaches a maximum height of h. I'll also analyze this question. When it is 3 by 4th of its maximum height, what is the ratio of kinetic and potential energies? I'll give you a minute to solve it. Well, I hope you have done this problem. Now remember a few things if a problem of this type comes. This is ground. I'm sure you know about this, but I will just go through this. This is ground. This is the lowest point on the ground, point A. This is the highest point it reaches, point B. Now I'm throwing it from the point A. At point A, the velocity is V. At point B, highest point, the velocity becomes zero. We have discussed this so many times. We have discussed this so many times. Now remember and mark this in your notebooks. At point A, the kinetic energy is maximum and that is equal to half mv square. It has the maximum kinetic energy because the velocity or speed is maximum. Now, if A is the lowest point, I can call the potential energy of that point as zero. That can be my reference point. So that potential energy becomes zero. So potential energy of this lowest point is zero. So the entire energy that this ball has, the entire energy that this ball has is in the form of beta kinetic energy, because the potential energy lowest point potential energy is zero, so the entire energy is in the form of kinetic energy. Because potential energy is minimum, in this case we have taken it as zero. Do we understand this? Can I have some raise hand that we understand this? That at the lowest point the total energy of the ball is in the form of kinetic energy because potential energy is zero. Do we understand this point, everyone? What about the offline student? Do we understand this point? But I can't see you, so you must at least speak or raise your hands or something like that, so that I understand that you have understood it. At the lowest point, The kinetic energy is half mv square, potential energy is 0, kinetic energy is maximum. If I talk about the mechanical energy at point A, the total mechanical energy at point A will be equal to kinetic energy plus potential energy. Kinetic energy is half mv square, potential energy is 0, so total mechanical energy at point A is half mv square, and this is the total mechanical energy. And remember, when I'm throwing this body up, when I'm throwing this ball up, the only force acting on this ball, the only force acting on this ball is gravitational force. Gravitational force is conservative force. We have neglected any air drag, any air resistance. We have neglected that. The only force acting on this ball is gravitational force. Therefore, the mechanical energy of the ball will remain constant. Now, let us talk about point B. Point B, if I go, everything reverses. Kinetic energy at point B, because the velocity is 0, velocity is 0, speed is 0, kinetic energy becomes 0, but the potential energy becomes maximum, and in this case the potential energy becomes plus mgh. The potential energy becomes plus mgh. Total energy, which was in the form of kinetic energy, has now been converted into potential energy. Energy cannot be created, energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be transformed from one form to another. At the lowest point, the total energy is in the form of kinetic energy. At the highest point, it is in the form of potential energy. Kinetic energy has been converted into potential energy, but the mechanical energy remains constant. What is the total mechanical energy at point B? Total mechanical energy at point B is sum of potential energy plus kinetic energy. Potential energy is mgh plus mgh. I'm not writing the plus sign. Kinetic energy is 0. This is the total mechanical energy at point B. The only force acting here is gravity. So I can equate this and I can find out the total. I can find out the value of H from here. This is one thing that you must understand. Now this mechanical energy at point A will be equal to mechanical energy at point B. If I take some point in between, which is the case here, point C. If I take some point here, point C, at a height 3 by 4h, 3 by 4 times of maximum height. Now, the question here is, and it's very simple, even a 6th, 7th standard student would be able to answer this. At point A, the total energy is in the form of kinetic energy. At point B, the total energy is in the form of potential energy. What happens at point C? What happens at point C? If I talk about point C, what would be the total energy be like? What would be the total energy be like? Now, whether it will be in the form of potential energy, whether it will be in the form of kinetic energy, or will it be in the form of a combined, some energy would be potential and some energy would be kinetic. What is your answer? In which form you will have energy at point C, which is 3 by 4 times of its maximum height? Point C. I hope everyone understands the question. At point C, what will be the case? Will it be total energy in the form of potential or energy in the form of kinetic, or it will be a mixture of the two, potential as well as kinetic? And I have some answers here. Can I have some answers here? No one knows the answer. So at point C, some part of it would be in the form of potential energy, some part of it will be in the form of kinetic energy. Some will be potential and some would be kinetic. Do we understand this? Can I have some raise hand that we understand this? At point C, some energy would be in the form of potential energy and some energy would be in the form of kinetic energy. Do we have understanding of this? The potential energy at point C is mg into 3 by 4h plus It will have some kinetic energy. Let us write it as Ke. Now that must be equal to the total mechanical energy. Now total mechanical energy can be written as half mv square, or total mechanical energy can be written as mgh. I will use mgh here so that I can get the value of kinetic energy in terms of mgh. Now if I solve this, what do I have? I have the kinetic energy as 1 by 4 of mgh. Kinetic energy at point C is 1 by 4 of mgh. Potential energy at point C is 3 by 4 of mgh. From here, I can find the ratio of kinetic to potential, and the ratio would be 1 by 3. Kinetic energy is 1 by 4 mgh. Potential energy is 3 by 4 mgh. Therefore, the ratio becomes 1:3. Do we understand this? Can I have some raise hand that we understand this? Kinetic energy is 1 by 4 mgh. Potential energy is 3 by 4 mgh. Therefore, the ratio becomes 1:3. At point A, the total energy is in the form of kinetic energy. At point B, the total energy is in the form of potential energy. At point C, or any point in between, some part of it will be kinetic, some part of it would be potential. I hope you have understood this, everyone. I'll give you a minute to note it down. Well, I hope you have noted it down and understood the concept. If a similar question comes in the examination hall, I'm sure you would be able to do this. That takes us to the next part of this chapter, and that thing is power. What is power? Everyone must be aware of this term power. The name of the chapter is work, power, energy. We've done work, we've done energy. We are now on to power. What is power? What is power? Rate at which work is done is called power. At what rate are you doing work? That rate is known as power. It is denoted by the letter P, and its SI unit is joule, which is energy per second. You can also call it watt. 1 watt is 1 joule per second. If I do 1 joule of work, In 1 second, my power becomes what? 1 watt. You can also find the dimensions of this. How do I get the dimensions of this? Dimensions of this will be the dimensions of work divided by the dimensions of time. It's the rate at which work is done. So work divided by time will give you a dimension. What are the dimensions of work done? Work is force into displacement. Force is mass into acceleration. So mass into acceleration multiplied by distance. So ml square t minus 2 divided by t. So the dimension becomes, I hope you remember the dimension, ml square t minus 3 becomes the dimension of power. What type of quantity is power? It is definitely a scalar quantity. It only has a magnitude. It has got nothing to do with direction. I hope every one of us understand these simple things. I'll give you a minute to note them down. Well, I hope you have noted this down. Can I have some raise hand if you have noted this? We noted this down? Okay. Now, when we talk about power or power, we can think it of as of two types. The first type of power is known as average power, and the second type of power is known as instantaneous power. Now, that would take us to chapter number 1, where we had average speed, instantaneous speed, average velocity, instantaneous velocity, average acceleration, and instantaneous acceleration. Average means, average speed means total distance divided by total time. Average velocity means total displacement divided by total time. Average acceleration means total change in velocity divided by total time. So it gives us average between 2 points or 2 instants of time. Remember, when we talk about work, work is not instantaneous. We cannot say that right now this much work is done. Work is always over a period of time, and that is why I write it as delta P, delta W, because it is always on an average. It is always between 2 points. It is never defined instantaneously, but power is defined instantaneously. So I can say right now my power is this much. 5 minutes afterwards, my power would be this much. If I talk about average power, I will say how much work I have done in how much time. That will give me the average power. So let us first write the definition of average power. How will I define it? Dabba and power written in dabba. Average power. What would be average power? So average power would be total work, how much total work I have done divided by total time. If I have done 5 joules of work in 5 seconds, 5 joules divided by 5 seconds. So I write it like this: delta W total work divided by delta T, that is my average power, power over an interval of time. That is my average power. I hope you understand this. Everyone, can I have some raise hand that we understand this? Do you understand this average power? Okay. Now, if you understand this average power, let us also understand what is instantaneous power. Now, instantaneous power is denoted by the letter P. Now, whenever we talk about power, we are basically talking about instantaneous power. If we have to talk about average power, we will say average power is this much. It is same like speed. When I'm saying my speed is 5 meter per second, I mean my instantaneous speed. If I say my velocity is 5 meter per second, I mean my instantaneous velocity. Similarly, when I say my power is 5 watts, I'm talking about my instantaneous power. What is instantaneous power? Instantaneous power will be delta W by delta T, but this delta T की limit would be tending towards 0. Instead of writing it in such a complicated form, I can simply write it as dW by dt, rate at which work is done. Instantaneous power P becomes dW by dt, rate at which work is done. Now I can write it in some really good form. Work is F dot dr divided by dt. dr is displacement, F dot dr divided by dt. But remember, dr by dt is velocity v. So I can write this instantaneous power as F dot v. And that becomes a very, very important formula for instantaneous power. Instantaneous power is F dot v. It is the dot product of force with velocity. Will you remember this, everyone? Then I have some raise hand that will remember this. Instantaneous power is F dot v, dot product of force with velocity. On the other hand, average power is total work divided by total time. I'll give you 1 minute, 2 minutes to note this down. What is average power? What is instantaneous power? And then we will go ahead. 2 minutes, note it down. Well, I hope you have noted it down. What is average power and what is instantaneous power? Can I have some raise hand that we have noted it down? Online class, offline class. Abhiram, Akshaya, everyone in the online class, offline class. Have you noted it down? Okay. Done. That takes us to the next small heading. It is known as the relationship or relation between instantaneous power and average power. What is the relation between instantaneous power and average power? Let's just drive it here. See, average power is total work divided by total time. Total work divided by total time. Now, this total work can be written as integral of f dot dr divided by total time. Now, if I go back in past, go back in past, and I look here, the yellow one, f dot dr. I can find the value of f dot dr from here. What will be the value of f dot dr? I can write f dot dr as, I hope everyone is listening to me. I can write f dot dr as p into dt. P is here, dt is here. So f dot dr becomes p into dt, and therefore integral of f dot dr becomes integral of p dt. Do we understand this? Can I have some reason that we understand this? I just substitute the value here. So this will be integral of p dt divided by total time. Instead of writing total time as delta t, I can write it as integral of dt. Just to make things look a bit difficult, I can write it like this. So basically, my average power and instantaneous power have a relation now. Average power is integral of p dt divided by integral of dt. Integral of dt is nothing but total time. I've just written it in a extravagant fashion. So average power is integral of p dt divided by integral of dt. Do we all understand this? Can I have some reason that we understand this? So these are the three things that you must remember. What is average power? What is instantaneous power? And what is the relation between average and instantaneous power? It's on your screen right now. I'll give you a minute to note it down. Then we will move and write some important points about this. Well, I hope you have noted down the relation. Now we'll just go through some important points. We have already discussed those points. but there are something that you should have noted it down. So we'll move on to some important points about power. So please note these important points. The first important point is definitely the dimension of power. We've already discussed the dimension. The dimension is ml square t minus 3. Remember that, don't forget it. Units of power is watt or joule per second. 1 watt is 1 joule per second. In CGS unit, it is erg per second. These are the type of question that might come to you in your NEET paper, and that is why it is important for us to discuss. Some practical units are kilowatt, megawatt, and horsepower. You must have heard about horsepower. Relation between different units. 1 watt is 1 joule per second. You all know it, which is 10 raised to the power 7 ergs per second. 1 horsepower is 746 watt, and 1 megawatt is 10 raised to the power 6 watt. You all know it. Just note it down. Well, I hope you have noted down the conversion factors. You must be knowing it. Let us move ahead and see one more important point. It's a very simple thing. Point number 3. If work done by two bodies is same, if a force is doing equal work on two bodies, work is same, then power is inversely proportional to time. Power is total work divided by total time, or rate of doing work. That means if same work is done in less time, power is more. Sometimes we say that we need more power. Why do we need more power? Because we want to do the same work in less time. We need more power. If I want to do the same work in more time, time is more, work is same, I will need less power. But if I want to do, but if I want to do the same work in less time, I would need more power. So if the work done is same, power is inversely proportional to time. Body which performs the given work in lesser time has more power, and vice versa. We all know it. Please note it down. I hope you have noted it down. Okay. Then the next point is this: power is work divided by time. Any unit of power multiplied by a unit of time. If I multiply power with time, I will get the unit of work or energy. Power multiplied by time will give me work or energy. We understand this. Such a unit is kilowatt hour, kWh. This is one unit that you must be knowing about, and that is why I have taken it. Your household bill that comes to you, I have to submit my household electricity bill. It comes in kilowatt hour. It does not come in kilowatt hour. It comes in one unit. How much unit of electricity have you burned? This one commercial unit of electricity is 1 kilowatt hour. That is why it is important for us to know what is 1 kilowatt hour. 1 kilowatt hour is 1 kilowatt power used for 1 hour. 1 kilowatt of power is 10 raised to the power 3 watt used for 1 hour. 1 hour is 3600 seconds, and therefore your 1 kilowatt hour, which is one unit, one commercial unit, is equal to 3.6 into 10 raised to the power 6 joules. I hope all of you would understand this. 1 kilowatt hour is 3.6 into 10 raised to the power 6 joules. Please note it down. I hope you have noted this down. The next point is this. We all know power is dW by dt. We are talking about instantaneous power, dW by dt. Or if I talk about average power is total work divided by total time. If I go back to the definition of derivative or total work divided by total time, if I draw a graph between work and time, the slope of this graph at any point, the slope of this graph will give me the instantaneous power between 2 points. The slope of the graph would give me average power. We all know this. Work and time graph, if I draw, power is dW by dt or average power is delta W by delta t. If I find out the slope of this graph, that will give me the slope of work time graph. The slope of work time graph will give me power. It is same as slope of position time graph gives me velocity. Slope of distance time graph gives me speed. Slope of velocity time graph gives me acceleration. Slope of work time graph gives me the power. Please note it down. I hope you have noted this down. Slope of work time graph will give me power. If I reverse it, what do I have? If I reverse it, I have a graph between power and time. If I have a graph between power and time, let us say it is like this. If I find the area under this graph, if I find the area under this graph, for example, let us say this is the area under this graph. Area under power time graph will be integral of P dt. This is the area under power time graph. The slope of work time graph or energy time graph gives me power. Similarly, the area under power time graph, if I reverse it, the area under power time graph will give me the work done by the force. Do we all understand this? Can I have some reason that we understand this? The slope of work time graph or energy time graph, work and energy, same things, not same things, they mean similar. Work is when we apply a force and something is displaced. Energy is the capacity to do work. Dimensionally, they are same. Work and energy are interrelated, so we can use the same term. So, the slope of work time graph gives me power. If I reverse it, the area under power time graph will give me work done. Can I have some reason that we understand this? I'll give you 2 minutes to write this, and we'll finish off the class when you have written this. This is what we needed to cover in today's class. I hope you have understood this. Note this down, and then we'll wind up the class. I hope you have enjoyed the class, and we will do some problems in the next class. Note this down, and if you have any doubts, please ask me. Else, this is a wrap from my end. The class is over. Note this down, and if you have any doubt, ask. Take care. Bye bye.